Okay, so there's a new government, the economy's, well, it's a bit wobbly, and the headlines about jobs are all over the place. It's confusing, right? So today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're going to get to the bottom of what's really going on with the UK's job creation strategy. Let's start with the question that's on everyone's mind.
And yeah, this is it. This is the big one. You see the economy slowing. You hear all this conflicting stuff. So you have to wonder, right? Does the new government actually have a real plan? A proper strategy to create and, protect jobs? Well, let's dive in and find out.
I'm sure you've seen these headlines bouncing around. One minute you hear there's no coherent plan at all, the next you see this terrifying number, 300,000 jobs lost. It's enough to give you whiplash. So what's the deal? Let's try and separate the fact from the fiction here.
All right, first up, let's tackle that whole no plan thing head on. Because the reality is, there is a plan. A pretty big one, actually. A detailed, long-term strategy that's right at the heart of their whole economic vision.
So what is it? It's called the Green Prosperity Plan. And the core idea here is really ambitious. They want to take this huge, massive shift we're all making towards a green economy and use it as an engine. An engine for growth and, this is the crucial part, an engine to create jobs all over the country.
And yeah, it comes with a massive headline number to back it up. We're talking 650,000. That's the goal, to create over 500,000 new, good quality jobs by 2030. And pretty much all of them are meant to be in these new green industries.
So how are they going to kickstart all this? Well, with a pretty hefty chunk of cash. We're looking at £7.3 billion. That's the public money they're putting in, and it's being channeled through something new called the National Wealth Fund. The easiest way to think about it is like a state-owned investment fund. Its job is to back these big, long-term strategic projects, not just, pay for day-to-day stuff.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Because that money isn't just being thrown into some vague pot. It's targeted. Super targeted, actually. You can see it's split across 5 key areas. We've got clean steel, upgrading our ports, building those massive gigafactories for car batteries, carbon capture tech, and green hydrogen. This isn't random. It's a very deliberate, planned-out industrial strategy.
Okay, so we've established there is a plan, a big one. But what about that other scary headline we saw? That claim about all the job losses, right? Let's decode those numbers and figure out what's really happening.
So this is the claim doing the rounds. 300,000 jobs lost in under 18 months. Wow, that sounds absolutely devastating, doesn't it? Like a total catastrophic failure of policy right out of the gate. But is it actually true?
And here's the twist. That claim is, well, it's seriously misleading. That 300,000 number, it has nothing to do with jobs lost because of a recent policy failure. It's actually talking about a totally different, long-term problem. The fact that around 300,000 people leave the workforce every single year due to ill health. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a massive crisis in its own right, but it's just not the story that headline is trying to sell you.
So what does the official data say? Well, this shows us the real picture. And the job market is getting weaker, no doubt about it. We can see right here that the number of payrolled employees has actually dropped by about 117,000 in the last year. And the unemployment rate, that's crept up to 5%. So yeah, things are definitely getting tougher out there, but it's a completely different situation than that wild 300,000 number suggests.
And this really gets us to the heart of the matter, because you've got this super ambitious plan on one hand and this pretty tough economic reality on the other. The problem, the real problem, is what experts are calling the implementation gap. When you look at the audits of the government's first year and a half, this is the number one takeaway. The plan is clear, it's well-defined, but there is a huge disconnect between what the plan says it's going to do and what's actually happening on the ground.
So why is there a gap? Well, it really boils down to 2 critical bottlenecks that are slowing everything down. First, we've got a major crisis in green skills. And second, there are some serious delays in getting key laws passed and actually put into practice.
Just look at this chart. It lays out the skills crisis perfectly. The demand for people with green skills, the electricians, the engineers, all the people we need for these new industries, it's growing at almost twice the speed that we're actually training and supplying them. And that creates a massive fundamental problem. You can't fill 650,000 jobs if you don't have the skilled people to do them. It's as simple as that.
Okay, so let's look at that second bottleneck, the legislative delays. This timeline here is for the new Employment Rights Bill, which is supposed to make jobs more secure. And look, it was introduced pretty early, back in 2024. But the key parts of it, they don't even start to take effect until 2026, and the whole thing won't be fully implemented until 2027. That is a huge lag time, and it creates a lot of uncertainty for both workers and the businesses that are supposed to be hiring them.
All right, so these delays, these skills gaps, they have a real impact on the money side of things. So let's talk numbers again. If you just take that 7.3 billion pounds of public money and you divide it by the 650,000 jobs they're aiming for, you get this number, about 11,000 pounds. That's the direct cost to the government for each new job.
But that's not the whole story. Not even close, because the total amount of money, the total capital that's actually needed to create one of these jobs, it's way higher. It's closer to 44,500 pounds. So where on earth is the rest of that money supposed to come from?
And this is the absolute crux of the whole thing. The government's 7.3 billion, that's just the seed money. For this whole grand plan to actually work, for every single pound the government puts in, it has to attract 3 pounds of private investment. Everything, success or failure, it all hinges on whether they can get private companies to open up their wallets. So, okay, we've got this huge implementation gap, a serious skills crisis, and the whole thing depends on private money. So, what happens now? What does the road to 2030 actually look like from here?
Well, the experts who've been looking at this have laid out a pretty clear 3-step action plan to get this thing back on track. First, they say you have to mobilize against the skills crisis like it's a national emergency. Second, speed up the rollout of those delayed laws that protect workers. And third, be much more open and transparent about how that national wealth fund is doing, because you have to keep those private investors confident.
And really, this one quote from the analysis just nails it. Policy intention has run ahead of the capacity for swift implementation. In plain English, the ideas are great, the ambition is there, but the government's ability to actually do it, to make it happen quickly, is just not keeping up.
Which leaves us right here with the final critical question. The vision is absolutely clear, but the execution, it's slow, and the clock is ticking. So can the government close that gap in time? Can they turn the plan on paper into reality? Because honestly, the answer to that question is probably going to define the UK's economy for the rest of the decade.